There are forces of good and forces of evil at work in the world today. What are these forces? Who is responsible for the good? And who is responsible for the evil? Richard Shoff talks about current events which are rarely discussed by the mainstream media, events that affect us all. This program seeks to identify, to inform, and to equip the believer for what's ahead. Welcome to What in the World is Going On?
This is Richard Shoff, your host on What in the World is Going On, sponsored by Lincoln Log Homes. Folks, did you know why Trump is more popular than ever? Was anybody surprised by the recent CNN poll finding Donald Trump's approval rating at 42? That's the highest it's been since the first infrastructure week. The 1,000 undifferentiated scoops in the Mueller investigation, the hundreds shifting positions on DACA and the fabled wall, Stormy Davis, a reversal of course in Syria and Afghanistan, moronic screams from the White House to turn food stamps into some kind of vast network of state-run bread and milk distribution centers, endless championing of the Wall Street gazillionaires against whom we had supposedly been running in 2016, relentless staff turnaround, a so far illusionary trade war conducted from the internet with minimal strategy or cohesion. Not one of these things matter to the not quite majority of Americans who voted for Donald Trump. You see, folks, we still like him. Why shouldn't we? The reasons for opposing Trump were clear from the beginning. He was a crude, mean-spirited man whose most noteworthy accomplishments were kicking old people out of their homes to make room for casino parking lots, speculating publicly about whether the duly elected president of the United States was a jihadist plant, pretending to fire Gary Busey in the fake boardroom of a made-up company on NBC. It was only the staggering irrelevance of what all 15 other Republican candidates were saying. It is almost sad now to think of the millions of words of Heritage Foundation PowerPoints still gathering virtual dust on Jeb Bush's website that made Trump's candidacy possible. Years later, the GOP is still talking nonsense about freedom and the free enterprise system. The Democrats are still obsessed with where people go to the bathroom, and Trump is still rude on television. You see, folks, nothing has changed. If anything, there is good reason to believe that in the weeks and months to come, polls without the historic Republican bias of Rasmussen will approach the 50% mark. It is not surprising that after a little more than a year in office, many people who voted for a president still support him. But it's also surprising that a president who has been the object of more negative reporting than any other in history still enjoys something like the same middling base of support he had before taking office. Unless it's the negative reporting that's the problem, which I suspect is very largely the case, you can only ask adults to participate in the fiction that a retweet of a wrestling GIF or a credible threat to violence against some nerd reporter at a cable station, or delight in what you hope will be the failure of American trade policy before they decide to tune you out. Very largely, this has already happened by Inauguration Day. But now the works of MSNBC and the New York Times and PolitiFact is complete. Millions of Americans do not know the difference between what is true and what is false. And you know what, folks? They've decided they don't much care either. There was, I like fondly to imagine, a different course that might have been taken here. It's just possible, I suppose, that members of the reporting profession could have exercised their reasoning facility to decide what in the administration was good, what was bad, and what was unremarkably or indistinguishably from what any modern president would do. What was painfully idiotic? What was perhaps evil? They chose not to exercise this responsibility. Instead, they chose to indulge in their own live-action role-playing fantasies after being brave, selfless journos, taking on a mean demagogue because they love the Constitution so much. There is, however, a faint glimmer of hope for Trump's enemies in the media. Making it work would require the coordinated efforts of a vast number of persons. Conspiring is the word for it, or maybe even collusion. But that shouldn't be difficult in the area of modern internet-based communication. If we want to convince people who voted for him that the president no longer deserves their support, we need to stop talking about him. Or to be more precise, we need to stop making Trump the universal metric according to which all of the human conduct is weighed and considered. If Trump argues against free trade, consider the issue on its merits. The idea that liberalizing the production and distribution of goods and services across national boundaries will automatically enrich everyone, instead of just the already wealthy and rich and poor countries alike. This has had its critics on the left and on the right for centuries. Even President Obama was skeptical of NAFTA during his first Senate campaign. And as of late, as the 2008 election, he was telling audiences that it should be renegotiated. That was President Obama. When Trump criticizes Amazon for its monopolistic practices, don't turn it into a tedious figure-waving exercise in fact-checking. And if you work for a newspaper founded by its owner and CEO, maybe avoid saying anything if you don't have to. Subject the company to the same scrutiny you'd reserve for any other giant corporation that treats America's cities as if it's firstdoms and our people are its grateful serfs. Pretending that anything the president says or does is bad because he's the one saying or doing it isn't just bad journalism. Folks, it's bad Americanism. It's bad patriotism. Think about it and judge. Quickly, let's look at the tracking poll, the presidential tracking poll on our president. The Rasmussen Reports Daily, the tracking poll for Wednesday, April 4th, shows that 51% of likely U.S. voters approve of a President Trump's job performance. 48% disapprove. The latest figures include 33% who strongly approve of the way Trump is performing and 38% who strongly disapprove. This gives him a presidential approval rating of -5. This is the president's best overall job performance ratings since April of last year. By the way, President Obama earned a 46 job approval rating on April 4th, 2010. That was his second year in office. Now that Gallup has quit the field, Rasmussen Reports is the only nationally recognized public opinion firm that still tracks President Trump's job approval ratings on a daily basis. The president earned a monthly job approval of 46% in March, down 2 points from February, but still better than it had been for several months prior to that. The latest Rasmussen Minute takes a closer look at the media's favorite porn slut, Stormy Daniels. Even after that, 52% of the voters think that when most reporters talk or write about Trump, they're trying to block him from passing his agenda. Wow. By contrast, 48% said most reporters were trying to help Obama pass his agenda in 2010. Before I close today, something with a little from the light side I'd like to share with you. Which side of the fence? If you ever wondered which side of the fence you sit on, this is a great test. If a Republican doesn't like guns, he doesn't buy one. If a Democrat doesn't like guns, he wants all guns outlawed. If a Republican is a vegetarian, he doesn't eat meat. If a Democrat's a vegetarian, he wants all meat products banned for everyone. If a Republican is a homosexual, he quietly leads his life. If a Democrat's a homo, he demands legislated respect. If a Republican is down and out, he thinks about how to better the situation. If a Democrat is down and out, he wonders who's going to take care of him. If a Republican doesn't like a talk show host, he switches channels. A Democrat demands that those that don't like it be shut down. If a Republican is a non-believer, he doesn't go to church. A Democrat non-believer wants any mention of God and religion silenced. If a Republican decides he needs health care, he goes about shopping for it or may choose a job that provides it. If a Democrat decides he needs health care, he demands the rest of us pay for his. If a Republican hears this, he'll tell it to his friends so they can have a good laugh. A Democrat? Well, he'll just delete me because he's offended. But you see, this is Richard Shoff. This is What in the World is Going On. We are sponsored by Lincoln Log Homes, and I guarantee you, they're not going to cut me off.